Okay, so nice. So very good evening to everyone. So we are live. So as decided, we'll be taking up some sessions like at 10 p.m. And yes, definitely there will be some different topics also. But presently we'll be covering sessions related to IATF, and then we'll also take some other different sessions as well. A very warm welcome to everyone. And at the end, I'll also answer you any questions. So let's get started and let's focus on this clause, and after that I'll take any session. Yeah, good evening everyone. I can see Ganesh, Girish, I'm good. Govind, Harsh, Jay, Mahesh, Narendra, Prakash, Rohit, Sagar, Kiran, Sarvanan, Sylvia, Gauri, Prakash, I'm good. Yes, Rohit, all good. Okay, so let's start, right? So I will keep yeah, this chat to admin only so that you focus on the content. And today we'll be covering 4.2. Although this is a part of our paid training program, like we are doing some like additional extra sessions, and then we'll also be taking up like new topics. For the month of March, we have taken up this new initiative. मार्च के महीने में हम एक नया इनिशिएटिव लिया है that हर दिन 10 बजे we'll host some session and also answer any query, right? Okay, so let's get started. So if you see like clause number 4.2, which is also a part of like ISO 9001, and this is also given in the like IATF. So if you follow IATF, which is automotive supply chain standard, so by default, like this clause is same. So this clause is given in ISO 9001 to 2015, and if you are implementing IATF, by default you need to implement the requirement for ISO 9001 to 2015, and that's mandatory. This clause is mandatory, right? So what do you need to do, right? Understanding the needs and expectations of interested parties. So here, like, what do you mean by interested parties? So if you see, interested parties are basically those individual or organization which has direct or indirect relationship with the company, product or services. These are basically called interested parties. Now let me give an example. Let's say that, and this is a real story, in one organization in the Bharuch in Gujarat, right? There was a fire like in one organization, and the name of the company was, I remember, was Sterling Chemical. So there was a fire in this company, Sterling Chemical company, right? So there was a huge fire, and just 200 meters away, or very near to this company, there was one another company, right? There was another group, another company, and this company name was like they were my clients, and I got to know from them that GFL, Gujarat Fluorochemical Limited. So they were in Bharuch, which is in 2-hour journey from Baroda, India, right? So it's a chemical complex. So what happened? Like there was fire at this plant, huge fire, and this company, okay, they helped this company. They have used their resources. They have shut down their one of the section, and they helped this company. Now the question is, why did they help their neighbor? Why did they help this company and the other company? There will be multiple answers. Definitely, yes, this company helped their neighbor because they wanted to be a good neighbor, right? A friend indeed is a friend in need is a friend indeed, right? अपने अच्छे दोस्त की मदद करना, neighbors की help करना, of course, yes. The other reason is, what would be the other potential reason? Yes, the other potential reason is because they were interested parties, right? So if the fire could not have been extinguished on timely basis, that their company could also might get impacted. Okay. So that what does it mean? That you might have very good system structure in place, but if there is a heavy fire, if they because of the interested parties, then it might impact you, right? Even if you have good safety management system in place, your organization might also get impacted. So this is very, very important. So that's the example of interested party. If your supplier is not sending you a good material, is not providing good material, what's the possibility, right? Can you maintain your quality? No, you can't maintain your quality. If your employees are demotivated, they are not happy, and can they keep your productivity high? Can your organization productivity will be on higher side? No, it can't. So what does it mean? That means interested parties has impact on your quality management system, and that's the reason you need to identify the interested parties. Okay, so let's see what's the requirement due to the effect. Okay, due to their effect or potential effect. That means they can affect or potentially they can affect, right? On the organization ability to consistently provide what? Product and services that meet customer requirements or applicable statutory regulatory requirements. So if you see like these interested parties may have impact on your product and services or may have impact on you so that you may not be able to meet your statutory or regulatory requirement. So what do you need to do? This is what you need to do, right? The organization shall. There's a mandatory requirement. Shall, when you say, is a mandatory requirement. What to do? Determine, that means identify, find out what? Interested parties. So you need to find out what are in this interested parties that are relevant to your QMS. That means you find out what you need to do, you make the list of interested parties. So you make the list of interested parties. What are the list of interested parties? That's what you need to identify. That's the number one thing. Not only you need to identify the list of interested parties, at the same time, you also identify what interested parties, like what requirements of these interested parties, that means basically their needs and expectations are relevant to your QMS. So you also not only need to identify the list of interested parties, but what are their requirements? What do they expect from you? That is also what you need to identify. I'll also show you a case study in next few minutes so that you get better understanding. So this is what you need to do, right? Identify the interested parties and identify what are their requirements, what are their needs and like expectations from you. That is what you need to identify. And then you link those requirements with your organization quality management system. That's what is expected and that's what is required. The organization shall monitor, okay, and review information about these interested parties and their relevant requirements. So what you need to do, not only identify these requirements, but monitor. That means when you say monitor, that means at a fixed frequency. At a fixed frequency, identify what should be your monitoring frequency. At a fixed frequency, you monitor that, and that fixed frequency could be 3 months or 6 months, like whatever you identify. And review information. So when you say review information, that means you will update those requirements. You will do study, your analysis, and if there are changes required, if you need to link that with your like some action plan or your organization quality management system. So that's what you need to do. Okay. So this is the requirement. Now let's see like what you need to do. What is interested parties? As I said, that these to a person or organization that can affect, might get impacted, and perceive itself to be impacted by your decision or activity. In a simpler word, you can say any individual or organization which has direct or indirect relationship with the company, product or services is called interested parties. Now, what are the example of interested parties? These are some of the example of interested parties. Stakeholders, those who are shareholders, promoters, those who are investors in the company, end user, final end user, dealers, customers, employees, supplier, government, neighbors, society, villagers. You can add more like banking, bankers. You can add certification body, calibration agency. You can add more, right? Basically, you can add them in the supplier or you can add them separately. So you identify what should be the like mode of identification. You can identify mode of identification. You can identify who is responsible for identification, who is responsible for identification, what's the mode of identification, who is responsible for identification. For example, you can identify for stakeholders and you can identify like planted promoters, maybe planted, and for end user, dealers, customers, you can identify either marketing or it could be like marketing can also be a stakeholder, or marketing can also be a responsible person, or it could be like quality, right? You can also make responsible, QE can also be responsible. For employees, yes, you can identify HR, human resource. For supplier, your purchase. For your government, again, you can identify HR. For neighbor society villagers, you can identify human resource. So up to you, like whom do you identify as a like responsible person, or whom do you identify as a give the responsibility for the identification. What could be mode of identification? There are different modes of identification. It could be like meetings, email, or some survey. It could be some, let's say, some discussions, right, which you can carry out, or it could be some proper like structure methodology. It can be some sort of feedback you can take from them. You can get their feedback in some form or email, whatever it could be. Like in general, if you see, for whom do you need to identify the survey? You can do survey for whom. So you can do survey for end user, dealer, customer. You can do survey for employees and suppliers. You can do survey from, even you can do survey from neighbor society, villages. For government, you need not to do survey. Why? Because their requirements are clearly identified in as a legal requirements. For stakeholder promoters, their requirements are also clearly identified in the budgets or in the, initially at the time when you make the annual budgets, or maybe in their review mechanism, right? So what do you need to do? You need identify the list of interested parties. These are my list of interested parties. These will be the responsible people, and that will be my mode of identification of these requirements. And then you also link that with your quality management system that I will talk about in my case study. So although the word documented process although the word like documented information is not mentioned, but still you will definitely need an expectation, and you carry out risk analysis, although that is mentioned in 6.1, but you can carry out that. And this is what we also like. I also give additional case study in our paid training program. So you can definitely visit our website www.submastery.com, and you can see there are like paid membership and plan which is available, and you can also consider joining that. And then you have this interested party feedback form. But here I'll show you some simpler case study, right, for your quick understanding. Now, how to implement these requirements? Number one, you identify list of interested parties. So what are the lists of interested party you identify, which are linked and relevant to your organization? You identify a list. Number two, you not only identify who is the responsible person and who is responsible for these interested parties. As I gave you example, you can identify who is the interested party for this particular, against this particular interested party, who is the owner basically for that. As I said, for employees, for villagers, society, government, you can make human resource responsible. For supplier, you can make purchase responsible, right? For customer and user, you can make marketing or quality responsible. Like that, you identify who is responsible person for gathering the requirements. Okay, for gathering the requirements. Identify the need and expectation, and based on what, is it necessary to always interview? No, not necessary. Or is it necessary to always have documented evidence? Let's say you go to your village head, and is it necessary that you get their signature that this is your requirements? That's not required. Like, even you can have an informal discussion, you can make your minutes of meeting. It's not necessary that you get signed from them. If you get signed from them, then it's good. It's much better. But if not, then you can just on a minutes of meeting, you can write that. That will be good enough. The major requirement is that you should understand their expectation. You should understand their requirement, right? And then you carry out the risk analysis. That is basically discussed in clause number 6.1. And then what's the control? And how do you monitor this, right? What's the action plan? And that's also identify at a regular interval, like what is your control and what's your action plan? How do you monitor that? Because the whole idea is to identify the interested parties, because they can have an impact. Like this, initially I talked about that, right? And then also link that with your quality management system, so that those interested parties should not, you mitigate the risk and they're addressed in your quality management system effectively. So this is what you need to do. I hope you understood the requirement. Now let me take you to case study. So I'll show the simpler case study. Okay, here you can see this is a very simple case study where you see the needs and expectations of interested parties. If you can see here, you can identify what's the updated date, what's the review frequency, as you can identify this on 6 month basis or a yearly basis. Don't go beyond 6 months, don't go beyond 1 year. Like you can, some company organization, they do yearly basis, that's good enough. But if you do on 6 month basis, then it's much better approach. So here you see, you identify interested party like end user, customer, investors, right? Like that. And suppliers, employees, government authorities, like that. On the top, you identify what are the needs and expectations. Some auditors lately have this expectation that you should separate needs and expectation. Needs are basic in nature. Expectations are above basics. Okay, needs are like food, clothing, okay, and roof, overhead, house. These are basic needs. Expectation could be like eating very a 5-star food every day, or above basic, like you can say. So definitely you can identify both. So in general, like need are basics and expectation could be above basics. So you can identify both and then can identify which of these requirements are basically linked with your organization objectives, and then you can take those and can consider those. Most important, you identify what is your control and action plan. You can identify, is there any control? When I say control, that means with this control with respect to any procedure or work instruction or action plan. When I say, if you have, like, how do you mitigate risk, or do you have any action plan for that? And here you can identify that who is responsible for that particular interested parties, who is responsible for taking up that conversation or identification. Let's take one example, right? Definitely I'll not go through all, but let's take one example. Let's see, like, is a supplier. So there could be more also. What does supplier want? Supplier want timely payment of schedule, communication of schedule. Supplier want that you should communicate schedule on timely basis. And that's the reason most of the companies organization, they mention that next month's schedule must be released by 25th of this month. Okay, so next month's schedule should be released by 25th of next, so let's say you are giving schedule of April. In that case, by 25th of March, the schedule must be released, so that depending on the lead time of depending upon your agreement, so that your supplier can also do appropriate planning. Timely payment as per agreement, right? But if they are small supplier and you do not pay them timely, they may have issue in buying raw material. They might have issue giving salaries to people because they may not have that big rotation of money or big money. Clarity of requirements, like what's the requirement? You also need to give this clarity, like whatever you're mentioning in your drawing and your purchase order, that must be clear. So if you see, like, and there could be others also, right? Now for timely communication of schedule, you can say that, okay, for timely communication of schedule, we have a procedure or system in place which basically makes sure that you have this timely communication, and this is defined in this particular procedure, like procedure for purchasing. Timely payment, you have created a review that whose payment is pending. For creative requirement, you have drawing, PO details are verified. Okay. And who is responsible for this? Who is responsible for purchase head or accounts head is responsible for this, right? Okay. In a similar way, let's see employees. If you see the employees, like what are the expectations? Many, so many expectations by employees. What are those? Like timely salary, of course, training opportunities, safety at workplace, hygiene, food, right? Fair promotion and motivational activity. And if you see employee motivation activities and incentive, basically employee motivation activities, not incentive, but employee motivation activities are compulsory in IATF. Okay. So here you see, you can now what you can do, how it is linked with your QMS, quality management system, or is there any action plan required? You can also give reference to that. Okay. So for example, for timely salary, you have the salary monitoring. For training opportunity, you have training procedure. You can give the numbering system also. Safety at workplace, you have emergency preparedness. For hygiene food, you have canteen committee. For fair promotion, motivational activities, you have employee motivation, HR policies, right? And who is responsible? Plant head or HR head is responsible for this. So this is something which you can update at regular interval. The whole idea is that to identify these interested parties. Why? Because if you do not fulfill the requirements of interested parties, then your quality management system will remain weak. You think about this. Can demotivated employee, can they take company to next level? No, they can't. So for that, your employees, it is said, demotivated employees will keep the customer demotivated. They will repel the customer. Customer will run away, or you will lose business, right? So that's how this clause is important. These are very practical clause. Some organizations are implementing this in a structured way. Some organizations are not implementing in a structured way. They are just implementing on paper. But those organizations which implement in a real way, those are the organizations who are getting benefit. And if many organizations does only on paper, pen and paper, these are the companies, they will not get any benefit out of that. Okay. So up to you, how do you want to get benefit out of this? So there's one way, right? You can like take that case study, and that's how you can make that. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this session. So if you are loving these small nuggets of knowledge, you subscribe to our YouTube channel or comment what you loved most and share this with your friends and family or whoso you think that if they can get benefit out of this. And also visit our website www.submastery.com, submastry.com, and you may find a lot of good stuff like this. And do consider become a member of our community. So thank you very much. Okay, so as friends, we decided that we are doing these special sessions, and so that I can answer your any query. So if you have any question, let me know. I'll be happy to help. You can raise hand. You can raise hand. I can unmute you, or you can type in chat also. So it's up to you how you want to ask question. What should be frequency, Bhavesh? To review IATF sanction interpretation on IATF global website. You can visit on monthly basis, Bhavesh, or if you subscribe to IATF globaloversight.org, you can get direct update in your inbox. So that will, at that time also you can review. ऐसा कोई mandatory requirement नहीं है कि आपको हर महीने visit करना है, but if you do that, then it's okay. You can do monthly visit, and you can subscribe to their website so that you get direct update. Yes, any question you can type in chat, or you can also raise hand. And what is the difference between end user and customer? Okay, Mahesh, easy difference. End user is the person who is going to actually, Rohit, एक इनका महेश का सवाल का जवाब दे दो, फिर मैं आपका सवाल का जवाब दे दूंगा. So end user is basically Mahesh, the user, final user. Let's say you are selling your bike, right? So in that case, end user will be the user who is using your bike, right? So end user is the final consumer, okay? And when you talk about customer, let's say Maruti, Bajaj, Tata Motor, Ashok Leyland, Mahindra, these are all your customers, okay? Did you understand? End user, the final user, customer is who is assembling your product and further selling into market. Yeah. Last risk analysis example. Last, I'll take that maybe tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Okay, I'll take that risk analysis for all. Of course, you need to do risk analysis for all the processes. It's always good. You can do department wise risk analysis also. Last department wise bhi kar sakte ho, but it's always good to do SOP wise. Like consider all processes good, like management oriented process, supplier oriented process, support oriented process, and COP, customer oriented process. But there's no need to differentiate between COP, MOP, and SOP. Yeah, you can simply do risk analysis for all the quality management system process or your documented process. That will be good enough. Yes, Rohit, please, you can ask your question.
Sir, I wanted to ask that this need of need and expectation of interested parties can be done within a plant for any department also, or it is wholly and solely for the whole organization?
What happened in the beginning when we started 2017 or 16, October 2016, IATF came, but the audit only started somewhere in the month of March and April 2017. So in the beginning for 2 years or so, 2.5 years until 2020, people were doing only for the organization level, at the organization level. Lately, what happened is some companies started doing internal within the department, and from each other they started taking that needs and expectations. So some auditors nowadays expect that you take from different departments also, but that's, I don't think, is the purpose. And if you show for organization, the auditor cannot challenge that. But lately, I have seen some people also started taking needs and expectations from within the department also, like what is the expectations from quality, production, purchase from each other. They have started doing that. But I don't think that that's very much relevant, because in any way you are doing the risk analysis, you are already have the SOPs in place. But yes, some companies have lately started doing that. But I think the standard does not demand that clearly. Standard is more focused towards interested parties. And it can be done internally also, it can be done externally also. To my mind, like, it should be done from the organization point of view. And this is what I have used in multiple companies, and no it has raised any question until now. Okay, Rohit? Yeah, welcome. Past lecture, abhi update nahi kiya Ravinder. Give us 2-3 days time. Actually, content is actually busy in producing some other editing and all that. So yeah, definitely will update. Just give us 2 to 3 days more time. The 30 days, I think abhi haan, wo aa gaya mere paas. Yes. Yes, we have got that. Maybe tomorrow you will see that. Yesterday lecture you will see in, not all lectures, but some of the lectures, like, we're not able to update. But yesterday lecture we have already created. Maybe I think next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you can see yesterday lecture also in the app in 30 days challenge. Yeah. Right. Thank you very much, friend. If you don't have any questions, we'll meet tomorrow with some new topic. And thank you. All the best. Do you think that these 10 p.m. session are good? Do you think that we should continue doing this at least for March? I committed that we'll do sometime. Maybe some other trainer might also do in coming days. Do you think it's good every day? Huh?
Every day, sir. Every day.
Every day we should do. You should learn every day. 365 days. चलो अभी 365 तो नहीं करते हम वादा, बट वादा हमने किया 1 महीने का, मार्च का टेस्ट ट्रायल कर रहे हैं. वी आर डूइंग अ ट्रायल, and if this trial is successful, maybe we can do it for a long period of time, but we are doing a trial wherein this is free for all. We are not charging anything for anyone, but yes, we do have paid training program also, and in which many of you are already enrolled. Yeah, this is good for revision. Yes, you are right, Swapnil. So we'll take multiple topics, but for the month of March, we'll do every day at 10 p.m. Sometime, like, we'll take different topics also. Some of the trainer will also come. Thank you very much, Satish, Nagesh, Shilpa. Thanks a lot, Swapnil, Girish.